It's that time again, guys. Another week started and another podcast that highlights those making positive impact on the world and bringing their stories and actions into the limelight. It's the Limelight Highlight, and as always, I'm your host, Jonathan Rosario. So a couple things. It's February, so you know what that means. It's Black History Month. And if you've been keeping up with the Limelight Highlight on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, then you know I'm dedicating this whole month to those who sacrificed, fought, and are still sacrificing and fighting to pave the way for equality for all people of color. As per the usual, I'll be giving you guys, fellow listeners, positive news stories, but as well as honoring the black leaders and activists who have and are continuing to change the world for the better. You know, a lot of people don't even know how Black History Month came to be. If you don't know, here's a little quick history story. In the 1920s, it was originally called Negro History Week. And the first time it was celebrated as a month was actually in 1970 in February by Kent State University in Ohio. Actually, thanks to those who celebrated the month and pushed for equality, President Ford actually officially designated February as Black History Month in 1976. Saying, and I quote, "seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of our endeavor throughout our history," end quote. Seeing how a country was built on the back of black slaves and immigrants, I'm surprised it was only 1976 when we officially recognized the month of February as Black History Month. And no surprise there, it's the shortest month, but another step in the right direction nonetheless. That was just a quick, very brief history about Black History Month that I hope taught you guys a little something you didn't know about before. Now, as far as stories that we're going to hear today, I have an amazing story about a kidney donor transplant that took place. And if you've seen that Fire Festival documentary on Netflix, then I got a silver lining story that came out from that crazy mess. So stick around. We'll discuss a couple of key human beings that helped shape the country for what it is today. Other than that, I just want to say thank you again to everybody supporting and giving me feedback on the Limelight Highlight. Shout out to Tommy. I'm doing this by myself, as I said previously in other podcasts, so I'm trying to make it as good as I can for you guys. He had a little bit of critique, so I'm trying to smooth that out. We're gonna, like I said, it's gonna be a learning process, but we're gonna get to all of that, and let's start the show. Okay, now for our first story, it's going to be about a single mother of two who desperately needs a kidney. So before we get to her, we have to talk about another single mother. No, she's not a single mother. She's married, but she's also a mother of two, which probably makes sense as to what she's going to do, why that makes sense. Anyway, so her name is Amanda Hayhurst. She is 32 years old. She was waiting for one of her two kids to finish his Taekwondo lesson in the class that he's attending. And while she's waiting there, she notices a flyer hanging up in the studio. And that flyer is kind of told the story about a 50-year-old mother of two named Vonchelle Knight, who's been in need of a kidney for about 8 years. You're probably wondering, why is there a flyer about somebody needing a kidney hanging up in a Taekwondo studio? Because that was my first thought. Turns out Courtney Knight, which is Vonchelle Knight's daughter, is 29 years old, and she actually works in the studio. So she posted up the flyer, kind of just whatever you can get out there. You know, it's your mom, you want to save her. So you're probably also wondering, why doesn't one of her kids just donate their kidney to their mom, right? Well, unfortunately, they're not a match. So they would, I guess, if they did. She's got one of those real rare blood types, those O positive, negative things. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but anyway, back to the story. So Amanda, she thought, why not check if I'm a match for this complete stranger, right? Which is, in my opinion, crazy, but also makes this woman remarkable for just having that thought. So Amanda goes through these extensive testings to see if her kidney would work for Von Schell, who at this point, while she's going through all this testing, still has never met Von Schell. Granted, I'm sure she knows her daughter because they go to the dojo, but doesn't even tell them that what she's thinking. She's just going through these extensive tests. And she basically has, at this point, it's been about 2 months since she's seen the flyer. Amanda seen the flyer, and the doctors determined she was matched. After all those vigorous tests and whatnot, she sees it. She's like, "Oh, I'm a match." So with the good news, and her husband, they both agree. They know what's going on. She goes back to the studio where she's seen the flyer and tells Courtney, Von Schell's daughter, the news and how she went through all these tests. She wants to give her kidney, and to Courtney's surprise, sure. So they both went to Von Schell's house and they gave her the good news. Now, the reason Von Schell needed a kidney was because she was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease in 2004 and had been on dialysis since 2013. So after they get together, they tell them, I went through all the tests, everything's good. They go to the room, they get everything set up, and they had a successful transplant. The donation was successful. Von Schell's no longer on dialysis thanks to Amanda. The surgery took place January 25th, and the two complete strangers now basically speak every single day and consider each other family. They celebrate holidays together, and they're even planning vacations together. Now, a story like that is surprising, and it gives me an incredible amount of hope for humanity after that. You know what I mean? You don't hear about stories like that. Just a complete stranger, "Hey, I'm going to donate part of my body to you because I read your flyer." Must have been a hell of a flyer, but either way, that is a Limelight Highlight worthy story. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to Courtney for putting up that flyer, and shout out to Von Schell, because without that, who knows? But that was definitely a heartfelt, warming story. I hope you guys enjoyed. On to the next one. All right, so our second story is about something that happened during this thing called the Fire Festival. If you guys know what the Fire Festival is, then this is no surprise to you. If you don't, I'll give you a quick synopsis. So this happened 2 years ago, the Fire Festival. Netflix launched this documentary about this all-inclusive music festival. If you haven't seen it, here's a Cliff Notes versions, and it goes like this. So a guy named Billy McFarland, who planned to have this festival in the Bahamas, basically overbooks this entire festival. He made a ton of promises to buyers for things he didn't deliver on, and he left everyone stranded on this island in a sense. He didn't pay hundreds of workers to help organize and set up the festival, and ultimately screwed over a ton of people. I highly recommend watching the documentary if you want more info, but that's just the synopsis. But anyway, so basically this guy's a straight douchebag, right? But he got what he deserved because he's now in jail serving a 6-year sentence for fraud and a whole bunch of other charges. But this story specifically is about a woman named Marianne Roll. If you've seen the Netflix documentary, she has a very touching interview about how all right, let me give you the backstory. So she owns this Exuma Point Resort in the Bahamas. Due to the disaster of the failing festival that this douchebag cooked up, she ended up serving and catering for over 1,000 people throughout the event. She was supposed to be paid up to, I think it was $50,000, and never got it. And all her workers that she had that were helping her, she spent her entire life savings to pay her employees and other expenses that she thought she was going to, capitalize back on helping with this extreme huge festival that was supposed to be filled with social media moguls and artists, and nothing happened. So her and her husband basically were left in a super compromising position. She was in debt up to her eyeballs. She was in this crazy hole she couldn't get herself out of. And this is going on for 2 years, mind you. So anyway, thanks to the documentary, 2 weeks after it came out, everybody saw this heartfelt interview. The lady was crying. The dude's a real douchebag. So because people seen what she kind of sacrificed to help everybody else, thinking, she's going to get paid and stuff, she gets screwed over, and they started a GoFundMe page for the Rose family, and they raised over $200,000 in donation. So that's a win-win, right? Even though it raised more than double that the festival amount kind of owed her, she, instead of taking all the money, she plans on paying and sharing all the expenses, all the excess funds with the rest of the people who got screwed over by the festival. So I thought that was another Limelight Highlight worthy story. Brings a little bit of feel good feeling, because it's just another story of how other people are helping other people. And it's not the ones with money. It's not the people who are supposed to do the right things. It's other people. It's normal people seeing how screwed up somebody who actually has the money, or in a sense is supposed to have the money, and gets together and creates something positive out of this disgusting situation with this douchebag. But with the silver lining aspect, social media definitely helped these people. They definitely came through. They helped donate. Shout out to everybody who helped donate and made these people's lives better. A lot of people lost a lot of money. A lot of messed up things happened during this festival, but in the end, the guy's getting what he deserves. I don't know if he deserves more than 6 years or whatever the case is, but he's in jail. Not everybody, but a lot of people getting paid. They're getting their money. So shout out to them, and hopefully nothing this egregious will happen again. All right. As you know, I usually do a nonprofit of the week award. This time I'm not necessarily going to do that because it's Black History Month. I kind of just want to shout out really, really small, very, very quickly, shout out some of the nonprofits that are involved in today's society. Like the first one I want to go over is the AACP. For those of you who don't know what that is, it stands for African American Planning Commission. Now, the AACP is a New York City-based nonprofit organization committed to reducing homelessness and addressing the related issues of domestic violence, HIV, AIDS, mental illness, substance abuse, shortage of affordable housing, and unemployment in the communities in which we live and serve. That is one of the most known nonprofits that are ran by African Americans. So I just wanted to give them guys a shout out. And one more, the AABE. The AABE also stands for American Association of Blacks in Energy. And what that is a national association of energy professionals founded and dedicated to ensuring the input of African Americans and other minorities into the discussion and developments of energy policies, regulations, R&D technologies, and environmental. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, the majority of the people who are affected by those particular things are people of color, minorities, and low-income class families. And once again, another reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people don't get to have that in their, they don't come across it much. So if I can be a conduit by showing you guys what little lesser known profits are doing, and by all means, I don't mean little in the sense of they're not doing big things, because they are. I just wanted to bring that, into the limelight in a sense, and just show you guys that there are more nonprofits out there that are helping. Now, with it being Black History Month, I kind of want to highlight some of the most influential Black Americans in history. And I want to do a Limelight Highlight Person of the Week for Black History Month. And this week, I want to start with a woman named Ella Baker. Now, Ella Baker is one of the more lesser known civil rights heroes, but also one of the most important. She was born on December 13th, 1903 in Norfolk, Virginia, and was raised in North Carolina.